We've already learned about deformers and how they're used to rig a model, so this lesson is going to help you understand how to structure these deformers in a way that makes the rigging process easier. Basically, what layers go into what deformers and what deformers should be nested together. The easiest way I can explain a deformer hierarchy is that it's a family tree. Like I mentioned in previous lessons, deformers can be parents or children of one another, and the movements or deformations of the parent always affects the child elements. This is incredibly important to understand, as something like the iris of the eye wants to move separately from the eyelashes, but we also want the entire eye to move together as the head turns. So thinking about our hierarchy as a family tree means that we can work backwards in figuring out where our art piece goes and what deformers it needs. So let's say we wanted to move our fingers individually or add physics to them. We have a deformer around our finger for the movement or the physics, and we can fundamentally understand that that finger is attached to our hand. So we grab all of our other fingers and the palm layer, and we put everything into one deformer. Moving up the family tree, we now know that the hand and all its parts are attached to our forearm. So we now need to grab our forearm layer and the deformer that holds our hand parts and nest them together into another deformer. It's the same process over and over until you get to the biggest deformer that holds the whole model. We're going to go over the decision making for creating deformers later because I want you to be able to look at your own model and understand what deformers you need and where to put your layers. But before we get to that, let's talk about some hierarchy rules. Firstly, parent deformers need to be bigger than all of their child elements. If the parent is smaller, deformations made on the parent will not affect the child elements properly and result in some weird deformations. Secondly, there's a special rule with rotation deformers. Rotation deformers allow their child elements to ignore deformations of warp deformers above it. So if you have an art layer inside of a rotation deformer, any movements of the parent deformers that are above it will not bend the art layers. It will move the rotation deformer and move the art layers, but it won't deform them. This is a cool trick that many artists use for specific rigging methods like the arms. Lastly, we talked about this before, but deformers all have a purpose, and they are named to represent that purpose. In most cases, they're either movement deformers or physics deformers. The order of these is almost always that the movement deformer is the parent of the physics deformer. This is because physics deformers usually just squish and bend their art layers, and we want the movement of both our physics and the art layer to stay together. If we put the physics deformer above, the movement deformer may move the art layers outside the physics movement, making it not work as intended. And that's actually all there is to deformer hierarchies, but now I want to give you the proper thought process in creating these deformers so that you don't get confused when making your own. I'll leave my own basic deformer hierarchy as a resource that you can download and follow, but this thought process should help you make your own. The only hard part later on will be knowing what types of deformers you actually need to make, but the VTuber workshop courses will have you covered. There's only 3 main scenarios that you'll have to figure out when adding a deformer to your hierarchy. 1. These parts move together and will always remain as one, will usually result in one deformer. 2. These parts move together but also need to slightly move differently at some point. This would equal the same deformer but then individual movement or physics deformers for each of those parts. And 3. These parts move separately, which would just equal different deformers. Again, everything will be under one main deformer at the very top, but this should help you understand how to break down the different individual layers of your model. Lastly, you need to decide if the layers would have their own physics, and for that you can kind of just decide if those physics parts will move together or move separately. Remember, physics deformers will usually be the lowest child deformer in your hierarchy, holding art pieces themselves. And there we have it. I hope you're feeling a little bit better about creating deformer hierarchies. Again, I can't cover the exact types of deformers you're going to need in this lesson, but as you go through the workshop course, you'll learn and understand everything you need to make your model come to life. We're almost at the end of the fundamentals course, just a little bit more, and you'll be on your way to being a professional Live2D artist. I'll see you in the next lesson.